Thank you, and I'm really pleased to be invited here when there's food. This is, keep me in mind next year. If you like this program, we have other ones. But my name's Leigh Altadonna. I'm one of the leaders of Bird Safe Philly. It's an organization that's been organized since October of 2020, and it's a coalition of different organizations around the bird people of Philadelphia. So it's the Academy of Natural Sciences of Drexel University. It's the Audubon Mid-Atlantic, which is headquartered in Philadelphia. It is the Delaware Valley Ornithological Club, one of the oldest ornithological clubs in the country. And then two Audubon chapters. My chapter, the Liberty Bird Alliance, which was formerly the Wyncote Audubon Society, and the Wyncote Bird Club before that, been around since 1914. And then the Valley Forge Audubon Society as well. So the bird people got together after a huge catastrophic collision in Philadelphia on October 2nd, 2020. Over 1,500 birds were killed. And I have a slideshow about Bird Safe Philly. It depends on how late you want to stay tonight. But I'm going to show you mostly the information about what you can do at home about bird collision and what Bird Safe Philly is hoping people will take away from programs like this. I'm assisted this evening with my colleague Rob. Rob, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself?
My name is Rob Karshnak. I just recently joined the Bird Safe Philly Council, but I'm a member of the Delaware Valley Ornithological Club. I co-chair the Conservation Committee. Right now I'm involved in trying to push to get Philadelphia named an official bird town through the Bird Town Pennsylvania program. I've also done some work with like FDR Park. There's a project in there, and I've been helping push against the city to conserve some of the land, and generally into birding in Philadelphia. And I run an Instagram account for the Bird Philly program, and I do some walks, typically at FDR, which is my patch. I live in South Philly, and Carol presented me with this book here, Solid Air, which looks like a pretty good resource for bird collisions. It mentions Leigh here. Put this together with Peter Stanger and Keith Russell. So they mentioned that in page 146 here. So.
You got the picture one?
Yes, no picture though, sorry. But it is Solid Air, Invisible Killer by Daniel Clem Jr., published out of Hancock House. So I guess I recommend picking a copy up if you're interested. It looks like a pretty good resource.
And make sure you see Rob. If we'll stay after the meeting. We have a lot of literature following up on this. But the goal of this evening is to really make sure you take away some ideas about just how serious this issue is. One of the quiz questions at the end is, why is this book called Solid Air? See if you can figure that out. And then make some decisions about doing some things at home, and we're going to give you a couple of ideas. Bird Safe Philly is not just Philadelphia. We're the collar counties of Philadelphia. That includes in Pennsylvania, Bucks, Montgomery, Chester, and Delaware counties, in addition to Philadelphia. And of course, then on the across the river, we're talking about Camden County. We're talking about Gloucester County. We're talking about, I guess, Burlington County kind of comes into the watershed. And I'm not sure if Salem County will count as part of the Bird Safe Philly reach, but frankly, that's not a huge issue. The other thing is, we got big news last week. It was published in the Philadelphia Inquirer. It was in WHYY. There are some other media outlets that have picked it up. There is a grant that was given to a group called the Wildlife Management Institute, nearly $500,000 from NIFWF, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And WMI wrote this grant specifically with the idea of Bird Safe Philly being a partner, and actually New Jersey DEP being a partner across in the Delaware River watershed to talk about ways that we can get more people practicing kinds of activities and to do bird safe activities. So this counts as part of our match. The number of people we're talking to, the amount of time that we're spending. We have to log all this so that we can let the folks at WMI, Waste Management Institute, let NIFWIF know that we are doing their thing and that we're helping to protect birds. So again, I actually have 3 PowerPoints. I'm going to really focus on this one. And then if those of you want to stay till midnight, I can do 2 others, but we'll do a poll at the end. And then again, we'll see you at the end. So this is a program called Bird Collision. It was developed back in 2017. Daniel Clem, who was the standing researcher about bird collision, started in the 1970s with his work and is at Muhlenberg College. So he was our consultant with this, and then we formed something called the Bird Collision Working Group. We got a little bit of grant money to do this work, to do some publications, and so it's now continuing in Lehigh Valley Audubon Society, which is up in the Allentown area, the chapter of Audubon there, and the Pennsylvania Audubon Council that I'm the president of, and Peter Sanger, who is the past president of Lehigh Valley Audubon, is on our board. And we just awarded Daniel Clem last year our Council Conservation Award for his contributions to bird conservation. So this is something that some of you saw parts of this when did the Eagle Festival. I think that's where Jane and Eric saw me, and they said we should invite Leigh for food. So I'm glad to have come. So just talking about how big a deal window collision is. How many of you know you have bird collisions on your glass at home? Just raise your hand. How many of you have done anything on your windows to try to prevent bird collision? That's pretty good. If I had asked this question back in 2017, probably fewer people, people would know that the birds are hitting, but fewer people would raise their hands about actually doing something. We first did a earlier version of this program with Dan Clem. We had 120 people from DVOC, the Audubon chapters, the Academy, and this is before Bird Safe Philly was formed. And out of those 120, a lot of those folks didn't even know about bird collision, and there were only 3 people in the whole group that had actually done something with their windows at either their apartment or home. And what will happen here tonight is all of you are going to go home and do something, which is really our goal. So we know birds are beautiful, and that's why a lot of you are here, and why you're members of the Nature Club, and it's something we appreciate. I know just past couple of weeks with all the snow, I've been doing a lot of ground feeding, and the number of birds that are coming into my feeders is just sitting there having a cup of coffee and watching the birds is just a joy, and knowing that you're helping them by putting the food out. And birds bring joy to a lot of us, a lot of inspiration and joy, especially when they migrate. How many of you have done stuff to your yard to make it more attractive for birds? That is, you've done native plants, you maybe have reduced your lawn, you might have water features. A lot of you have. We have a program, I know New Jersey Audubon has a program on bird habitat recognition, and we're really pleased that people are doing this because of the loss of habitat and because of what I guess Doug Tallamy is trying to do, is getting people to reduce lawn and to do more native plants. We need bird habitat around our homes. This is a comic that was done because we had too many dead birds in our earlier versions of this. So this became a way to try to talk about it. I don't think it's funny at all, but it's supposed to be when the windows and glass was first created, that it was a great way for the folks back in the medieval times to get food to eat. I think it's a bad joke, but Peter and Keith Russell overruled me. So here's the thing. We know windows kill birds. That's why we call windows and glass solid air. That's the answer to the question. We'll get back to that. This is suburban sprawl. So you go around, Philadelphia alone has 543,000 structures, buildings in the city. And you start going around the different suburbs, you see this kind of sprawl happening all over. I was surprised the last time I went over the Commodore Barry Bridge, and just how developed 322 was getting, in terms of warehouses and that type of thing. This is Daniel Clem. He's the vintage of Eric and me. He's around our age, Eric. So Daniel, you think we're a little older?
I know he's a little older.
Yeah, no, I think we're a little older, but that's a different, we can have that contest later. But here he is at Muhlenberg, and he was the one that did the initial studies about glass and why birds were striking glass and getting killed. So this is how this has changed, and this is why it's a big deal. In the early part of his work, he thought between 100 million and 1 billion birds died annually in the United States alone, from hitting glass. And now Scott Loss, who I believe is at the Oklahoma State University, now picked up the work. The baton has been passed to him in some ways. He was thinking it was about 365 million to 1 billion in any one year. It's a lot of birds. So in March of 2024, there was a study done. This is up at Muhlenberg, and they have jumped the estimate again based on their study, because I think I'll jump ahead to another slide here, and I might be predating it here, but over half of the birds that strike windows don't leave a mark. They don't die right there. They fly off, and they die later. And so this was published in the Wilson Bulletin of Ornithology, and the peer review study that was done. 1.28 billion birds to 3.46 billion die annually. That's a lot of birds that are getting killed, and it's all year round, but it is especially concerning during spring and fall migration. And that's every day we're talking about these bird kills. So we can't ignore it. And those of us that love nature, love birds, this is something that we need to take action on, and this is why Birds Safe Philly has gotten so involved with this work. So this is a couple of the events that have reached and gotten a lot of newspaper or media attention. In Galveston, Texas, they have Houston here, I think it was in Galveston too. Hundreds of birds died in striking a building that was externally well lit. The one in 2020 here, over 1,500 birds, it's estimated, have died in the city alone. Just hitting, some of them around the Comcast tower, some of them around some other parts of the building. And we were lucky that we had some people like Keith Russell and Stephen Meshew, I can't pronounce his last name, Stephen, who was monitoring, that found these birds, and were able to document that this has happened. And so that was really the genesis of getting Birds Safe Philly formed. And it's also, you've heard of the McCormick place in Chicago on the lakefront, Lake Michigan. That has had extraordinary mass bird kills a couple of different times. It's now been protected by a product called Feather Friendly, and the monitoring that they've done there have documented that the mortality of birds coming across in migration and striking the glass on this building has dropped dramatically. So they have the data to prove it. So that's why we're talking about potentially 3.5 million birds a day. And in the United States, including here, including Philadelphia, including all across the country, are being killed cumulatively. So everybody thinks it's a big city problem because of these mass mortality events. They think that because of what happened in 2020 in Philadelphia, or what's happened at McCormick Place, they're the places we need to take care of. We do, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but it's not the place where most of the birds are getting killed. We're looking at the households. You can look at the math here. I'm not going to read the slide to you, but you think about that suburban sprawl photo. Each one of our houses, our apartment buildings, our schools, our places of work have glass. And each one of them are responsible for some number of birds being killed, even if you don't notice it every time. Now, a bunch of you raise your hand and you're aware of it, but these are like 2, 3, 8, 10 birds a year hitting the glass in a suburban building. And this is where it is. It's our backyards. 44% are the 1 to 3 story buildings where these birds are getting killed. That's our homes, that's our schools, that's our low-rise businesses that, especially if they have any kind of trees and habitat around them. The low-rise buildings of 4 to 11 stories, that's over half. So these are not the skyscrapers. And it's less than 1% for these really tall buildings that get all the attention when you have the mass kills. The residences aren't big mass kills. Even the low-rise buildings, the 4 to 11, they're not going to be killing 1,000 birds in one evening, but they are cumulatively racking up numbers that are extraordinarily concerning. Isn't this uplifting after dinner? So, here's a graph, that talks about the way that this tally has come up, showing the low rise of residences and the high rise. Interesting bar graph, but it's not just a tall building problem. Here's the problem. It's glass. And these are some actually photos that Peter Sanger took, showing some images of bird collision. So you can see the splat. A lot of you hear the thunk on your window at times. So, these are the kinds of things that happen. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but look at the picture on the right. You can see where the bird hit. That bird probably perished. But what do you see in that glass? Trees and habitat. Solid air. Birds don't see the glass. They fly right into the what they think are trees or into habitat that's in the distance. That's reflective, and we'll see more of that. This is the data that, again, the more recent study. Just because you haven't heard a bird hit or you haven't found a dead bird doesn't mean your windows aren't killing birds. If you have a picture window and you have some trees and habitat, you have birds that are hitting your windows. Some of us get like you see it fly off and go, woof, at least it flew off, it's not dead. Well, it'll die sometimes days later. But 50 to 8% don't leave evidence at all. Some fly away after a collision and are estimated to die later. Again, this has been part of the work that they've done at Muhlenberg and elsewhere. Here's the other thing that's always interesting. Cats also kill a lot of birds. They've been documented, especially people that leave their cats out. Just think it's a natural thing. I was at a house this morning that is a bird-friendly habitat. They have a catio. The cat does not go outside. A catio is an enclosure where they let their cat go outside, sorta, but it doesn't get out to interact with the birds at their bird feeders or anything else. But a lot of people do let their cats out. It's your neighbors, and they will kill birds, but they also, if there's a collision with one of your windows, they'll pick the bird up and take it back to their master's home and make it a gift, or they're generally not hungry, but they're going to deal with the dead bird that might be picked up and you don't realize it hit your window. Chipmunks are a new one to me, but there are other kind of critters that will pick up the birds that may be striking your windows, and these mammals actually learn to forage underneath sometimes picture windows and other things at homes. We have some photos, I don't know if it's in this slideshow, but where you'll see the tracks of a predator actually diverting to go under a picture window at a house in the snow because there's a chance for a kill here. Birds don't break their necks. It's kind of like the NFL concussion protocol. They hit, they get blunt force trauma, and they either die on the spot or die later, when they go off. So this is the other thing that is really concerning about glass. We know that predators, how many of you have Cooper's hawks hanging around your feeders these days? I get one that comes through my yard at least twice a day, sometimes gets a bird, but a predator will generally take the birds that are easier to catch. Older, the unfit or injured birds, that's what they take. Glass doesn't do that. They'll take the healthiest of the birds, as well as any other kind of bird that hits the glass, and it's all year round, not just migration, it's all year round. So here's why they occur. This is up in Allentown. I believe it's Cedar Crest College. And you look at that, that's not a mirrored wall. That's glass on Cedar Crest College. And you can see the fall array. Daniel Clem took this photo. I don't think that he looked to enhance the trees in any way. It's a pretty full foliage. But you can see that what birds see is that they're flying to trees. It's solid air. They don't see the glass. It's reflective. This has both reflective and see-through. So you see the bottom windows here? Birds will, again, not see the glass, but they'll look right through. And if you have a glass patio enclosure, they'll go from one side to the other. And then you have some literature here in a place called Sister Cities. It's a glass cube on Logan Circle. And birds think they can fly right through. I don't know what birds think, but they fly right through, presumably to get to the habitat that they see on the other side of the glass. The top windows here are reflective, but as a consequence, this does pose a really extraordinary problem. How many of you have windows like this at your house? It's not uncommon. It has the reflection, and there's also a little bit of a see-through effect. So that's here. This is Peter Sanger's house, and you're going to see those cords that are hanging down. They're called Acopian string savers. There's some information about those here. It's a very inexpensive way to address window collision and to prevent birds from flying into those windows. Peter indicated that he had multiple kills up until the time that he did these string savers. I think he's had to replace them once, but they last for a number of years. It's paracord, kind of the nylon cord they use for parachutes, and they're hung 4 inches apart. We'll talk more about the 2x4 rule in a little bit. This is really tough. When you have walkways like this on campuses, to allow people go from one building to the other. I know Minneapolis has been in the news, and I've done some years ago a visit there with some of their bird collision work, and the city of Minneapolis has a lot of these kinds of walkways that people use in colder climate. But again, it's a see-through problem for birds. And there's a glass wall like this down at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It's glass on both ways. It reflects, but you can also see through. And I'll talk a little bit about different kinds of markers, but this kind of exposure where it's both sides, you need to put the black dots on, not white dots, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. This is Peter's house again. He said, you can see where this basement window was. He said he was up having some coffee on that deck, and then he heard the thud and went around, and a bird, I don't remember what species it was, but it hit that basement window. So, even those kinds of windows can pose a risk for birds. And we're not talking about the birds that, you have a male cardinal that might go to your side view mirror on your car, or a chickadee that might come up to your window and peck at your window because it thinks the reflection it's seeing is another male and it's trying to defend its territory. That's not what we're talking about here. This is where there's really a chance for the collision. And it looks like this is Peter's window again before the Acopian string savers went through, and that's where he got that splat. So wherever birds and glass mutually occur, there's going to be casualties. And this is a kind of bird I had. This is not my yard, but it's what prompted me to protect my patio doors, where I was getting about 5 or 6 kills that I knew about a year until I put deterrents in, and I've not had any that I'm aware of or seen or since. Okay, this is Center City, Philadelphia, on Benjamin Franklin Parkway, not far from the Museum of Art, but we know that urban environments, there are more lethal strikes when there's spring and fall migration. And Birds Safe Philly did a lot there because of light and we can talk about light and what you can do about light in just a moment. Oh, let me go back to that because I don't think we have another slide. We probably need a couple more slides about light. Light is a huge issue. Birds, migrate what time of day? They're nighttime migrants. Do you know why birds migrate at night? Most of our songbirds migrate at night. Any idea why they do that?
Predators aren't active.
That's right, less predators. Any other ideas? The moon?
Yeah.
They actually stars, there's some evidence that they navigate with some of the stars, the stars around the circumpolar constellations, some relationship with that. It's cooler at night. It's a lot of energy you're using when you're flying at nighttime. And so birds will take off in the evening, fly at night, and then what is being studied, there's a researcher at the University of Delaware, and his name will come to me in a minute, not a slide here, but he has used weather radar and has evidence now that birds even 100 miles away will be drawn by the light to these urban centers, to our suburbs and our urban centers. And what happens is at the end of the evening or the night and dawn is coming, they settle out. They come and look for habitat so they can kind of restore some of the energy they've used overnight. And they're in these urban glass caverns, and they're in cities, in these little grassy spots, that kind of thing. And that's why we get a lot more mortality in spring and fall migration in the cities. But the light is a huge issue. So the other thing is I talk about migration, but this is a year-round problem. This is Peter's backyard, and it's also an area where they do some of their bird collision research. But you can see a lot of birds that they have at his feeders in a snowstorm. He lives in Berks County, so not that far from Allentown. So the density of birds in the vicinity within 30 feet or so are a factor, so where your bird feeders are going to be an issue. And other factors are water and vegetation. So, again, if you're doing a lot of bird habitat, which is something I do, and a lot of you raise your hand, this is, even more of a factor. So this has been updated, I think, in November of 2025. They, at Muhlenberg, collect the casualties in terms of the number of species and the number of the world species that have been killed. They get reports from Korea, South Korea, other places. And these are the kind of bird species, the number of bird species that have been killed by window strikes. And then you can do something about it. This is probably Muhlenberg's collection. There's collections like this at the Academy of Natural Sciences too. So here are the solutions. This is one of them. If you put netting of some sort, you can prevent the bird from striking the glass. Somebody was just talking to me. Put exterior screens on the windows. I replaced the windows. I have a house that was built in 1890. We replaced the windows. We made sure there were full exterior screens, and they are a deterrent. It works, just like the netting, but that will work. So if you're going to go to Anderson Window and you're going to, or all those commercials, and replace your windows, they don't do much with doing any kind of bird-safe glass, but you can make sure you get exterior screens. This is the 2x4 rule, and increasingly it's the 2x2 rule. Rob can show you something we have here. I want you to think about birds. You'll watch birds, you'll watch them fly into a piece of shrubbery or a bush or a tree, and they go through really tiny spaces. Birds are really, really effective and proficient about getting into really tight spots. So that's what they are really engineered to do. I've seen a video of I don't know if it was a sharp-shinned hawk or a Cooper's hawk, and I think it was one that was not wild, but they had it released and it came through. You think it was impossible for this thing to fly through this space, and it did in a regular tree. But if there is a breaking up of the space by 2 inches by 4 inches, it helps to deter the birds from flying through that space. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And 2 by 2 has now become the more preferred rule. The other thing is, whatever you do to your windows, the most effective spot is to do it on the outside surface, the surface 1 we call it. It's the side of the window that is facing the weather, that's getting the weather. Most of our windows now have 2 panels. You know, they have like some kind of inert gas between 2 panels to help insulate your home a little bit better. If you put stuff on the inside surface, not as effective. You really got to put it on surface 1. You got to put it on the outside surface of your glass, the surface that faces the weather. So this is the range, an estimate of how many birds hit your windows at a regular home, at 1 to 3 stories, about 10 birds per year. But if you install a good collision system that's even 80% or 90% effective, you're going to reduce and save over 100 birds over 15 years. So here again, here's the power cord, very inexpensive, something you can do. I know some of our colleagues in Audubon chapters in New York have been doing a project, and they actually are working with libraries. They bring power cord, they bring a wooden rod, and they have people come and make their own Acopian string savers, cut the power cord to the length of their windows and that kind of thing, go home and hang them up. So it's something that's relatively inexpensive to do. So there's the power cord. I know this is something that Peter Sanger and Daniel Clem really promote because it's effective and it's cheap, relatively inexpensive. Nothing's cheap anymore, but it's relatively inexpensive, and you can take care of that. This is something we have been using a lot with Bird Safe Philly. That's the feather friendly. Yep, Rob has it here. You can kind of see this came from Feather Friendly. It is at least 90% effective. It's been tested by both Muhlenberg and by the American Bird Conservancy that tests a lot of these products, and it is a highly effective product. We talked about the McCormick Center in Chicago. Feather Friendly donated their material, the dots, and they have installed them at the McCormick Center, and that has reduced the mortality significantly. So there's a lot of information about it. We did it at Sister Cities Cafe. I have a handout here, and that we knew there were each week with our monitors 8 to 10 birds killed every day at this little cafe, 1-story cafe that was basically all glass. And once the Feather Friendly was on, last year we had only 1 mortality, a catbird. This is the Feather Friendly. We can see it over here at the display. This is one I like, a pattern kaleidoscape, probably a more expensive solution. You've seen buses that are shrink wrapped and you can, if you're in the bus, you can look out. But from the outside, it looks like a picture or something. I went a store in a strip mall near where I am had, it was a place where women did their hair. What do you call that kind of place? But they had all these big pictures of different hairstyles, perfed vinyl. On the front, it was actually bird safe. I know they didn't do it for the birds. They did it to try to attract people to come and see their, get their hair done. And so they had the different styles. I went inside, you look out, you don't even see that anything is there. It's perfed vinyl. Hawk Mountain. Eric, you've probably seen this. From the outside, it's the perf vinyl. The vinyl has how to identify raptors. On the left, you see it from the outside. From the inside, that's the same door with that material, and you can see right out to the trees and woods that are out there. That is really an elegant way to do it. Again, it's on surface 1. If any of you have been to Middle Creek in Pennsylvania, where the snow geese mass, if some of you have, Middle Creek, anybody else going to Middle Creek? Yeah, toward the end of February, you get sometimes hundreds of thousands of snow geese there. It's pretty exciting to see. But they have done per final. It's a wildlife management area in Pennsylvania. This is one that actually Peter worked with kids. He got some extra kaleidoscope. The kids cut out shapes and stuck them on the windows. They made sure they were within 2 inches of each other, and it's effective. And you can see it from the inside and the outside. This is a kaleidoscope that's clear. I don't know how this works, but apparently it is a product you can use. This is a Copian American Bird Conservancy, bird tape. I'm not sure it's made anymore, but ABC used to sell it. Aesthetically, to me, it was one of the least attractive options because you have these opaque stripes on your windows, 4 inches apart, but a little hard to see out. Here's others. I was at, again, a yard this morning, and they just used marker, glass pen, and it worked very effectively. They talked about the birds that have been striking their windows and how the markers helped. Here's a number of other different ways. I'm not sure if this is a school or not, but you can see that it works. It may not be all that attractive looking out from the inside. That seems to be most people's concern, is the aesthetics of whatever they use. This one says if you keep the blinds down and partially closed, it's better than nothing. But it's not a whole lot better than nothing. So, but it is, it's not a bad thing to do, but it's also a good thing to do at night so that you don't have light escaping into the environment at night, especially during migration. There is a brochure over here that's been updated by National Audubon that we have. It was originally done by our bird collision working group, but it has a lot of different techniques that you can use. You can take one, we have lots of them, so you can take one as a reference when you go home. And so, what's bird friendly? How many of you have seen a place where they think they're protecting the birds because they put a raptor in the middle of the window? Have you ever seen that? Just one person? Used to see that quite a bit. Actually, one building we retrofitted for Bird Safe Philly, the Schuylkill Center, pretty great and well-regarded nature center in the city, had raptors, a silhouette of raptors. They do nothing. One thing in the middle of a window, I think people think that the bird's going to see a raptor and be afraid. They don't see it as a raptor. And it's not the 2x4 rule, so they're not seeing it as a deterrent to the glass either. They'll fly right through wherever there's space. Oh, there we go. Here's back to the 2x4 rule, and then again, we keep promoting 2x2. Okay. Now, how many of you have seen these products? Even at Wild Birds Unlimited or a store, there may be these leaves or hummingbirds or other kinds of things you can slap on. They would work only if what? They were 2x2 or 2x4. Just putting a few on the windows are not going to be effective.
How long do they last? If you put them on, do they last for years?
What's that?
Do they last for years?
I will tell you the feather friendly we know is guaranteed for 15 years and that it generally lasts 20 years. The Acopian cords will last for the length of a power cord. We're going to be redoing. Have any of you ever been to the Heinz Refuge in Philadelphia? Yeah, we're going to be retrofitting that in April. They had some Acopian string savers and they shrunk. You know, they stopped protecting the windows. And the Department of Interior, they had funding, and so they have bought a lot of the feather friendly, and our volunteers are going to help the staff install it at the Heinz Refuge. So we're really excited about that project. Placement of bird feeders. My bird feeders are 15, 20 feet away from my windows, but my windows are protected, which is helpful. But if you are concerned about where your feeders are, the closer they are to glass, especially if they are, if you don't have their windows protected, the more effective it is for a bird not to be killed by striking your windows. So they don't have enough to get a running start, to hit the window. The other one where there's been some studies, it's promising, but it's not all that, I guess, bird-friendly, effective yet, is ultraviolet. From an aesthetic point of view, you don't see it. So if it's manufactured this way, birds have some ability to see ultraviolet, but not all birds see the same amount of ultraviolet. And then there are now companies that are making glass. Some of it actually has frits in it. They might put ceramic frits every 2 inches, or they'll frost it with an acid etching, so that's a permanent thing. And then Guardian Glass is working with an ultraviolet etch as well. So if people were having building codes to do this kind of installation on glass, it would help greatly. So that's the industry beginning to take notice. And architects know about this. Architects know how to follow leads, follow other kinds of things. It's the owner that wants to construct the building that needs to be convinced to have the building struck. The ultimate solution will be for building codes that require bird-friendly buildings. There's been a federal piece of legislation called the Federal Bird Safe Building Act. I think this is about the 4th Congress in which it's been introduced, and it's just not passed. It has not, I think it is Congressman Griffith from Virginia and the congressman from Illinois, whose name is out of my head, but they have introduced it every session in the House, and it got close once, but it's never been passed. And that's just for federal buildings. Now, and they're not talking about historic buildings like the Independence Hall, but they're talking about other types of buildings. One thing that is really happening is the Department of Interior is taking some action on their own. I don't think I have it in this slide. No, I don't. Let me go back. We have been, our Bird Safe Philly monitors have been monitoring Independence National Historical Park. They do a route around the main mall, which is mostly lawn and there's trees. It's where the Liberty Bell Pavilion is. It's where the Constitution Center is. And there's some others, the Visitor Center. There's some other buildings. And they've been collecting the dead birds and documenting the data. The folks at Independence National Historical Park met with us. I have it in another slide, but I'm not quite sure what time it is, and I'm not sure you're going to want to have me go through another one. But at any rate, they met with us. They talked about the collisions. In March of this year, they are going to retrofit the Liberty Bell Pavilion with a product called Bird Divert. It's about 80% effective, and they're going to do all the glass at the Liberty Bell Pavilion. The Liberty Bell Pavilion gets about 1 million visitors a year. Hopefully, we're going to encourage them to do some signage at the Liberty Bell Pavilion so that when you're waiting in the whole damn long line to go see the bell, you'll go by, you'll see the windows and wonder, what's the stuff on the windows and why is it there? Need to educate people so that laws like the Federal Bird Safe Building Act might get passed, or ordinances in bird towns might get passed. There are some bird towns that have been able to get their municipality to change their building code so that bird safe glass or exterior screens or other kinds of bird-friendly features are taken care of. So, this is just, kind of summing it up. That birds matter. There's things we can do. We don't need an act of Congress. We don't need your local municipality to pass a law. It's something you can decide on your own to do at your own windows. And you could do it, this winter. You can do it this spring. And the other thing that you can do is make sure your lights are off at night or reduced, pulling down your shades. If you have lights that are exterior lights that have motion detectors, so they're not on all night, or that you turn the lights off. You want people to be safe. We don't want people tripping in the dark. But there are some steps you can take, and there's some information here on the side about that as well that we share with Dark Skies International, so that you can do lights out. Something Bird Safe Philly is doing with this grant, and I think New Jersey DEP will be doing the same thing. We need you, if you turn your lights out from midnight to 6 a.m. during spring and fall migration, we want you to go to our website, BirdSafe Philly. It's birdsafephilly.org. And then you'll find a form there to sign up to indicate that you're participating in Lights Out. It's called Lights Out Philly, but remember, it's not just Philadelphia, it's the ring counties in New Jersey and Pennsylvania as well. And so we want to make sure that we get more and more people participating and taking action on their own. And Lights Out is one of the easy ways to do it. I don't know how many of you have your lights on from midnight to 6 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., but it's not a hard thing to address, or to close your blinds or shades so that the light is not escaping, so we're not drawing these birds in from 100 miles away to unsuitable habitat like cities or suburban sprawl areas. We showed this earlier, solid air. All right, the question now, why is this book called Solid Air? I gave enough clues. This should be an easy one. It's because birds can't see glass. It looks like air, solid air. And I think that's it. Yep, here's some contact information. I think this is being recorded. Robin Clem did some of the graphic design for this. That's Daniel Clem's daughter. And the Bird Collision Working Group, again, that we had gotten started back in 2017 with a grant. We still have this going on. This is on a national site. You can go to the toolkit and do this on your own. So you can do what I just did. And there's actually a nice script. You can go and spread the gospel of bird collision. So you can use this and do this with your garden clubs, do this with other kinds of organizations you're with. And we need more people doing this kind of work and building the durable will to support legislation that eventually requires bird-safe buildings. I think that's it. I have no idea what time it is. Yes, yeah, that's good. Question?
Yes, our illustrious president says that the birds are dying by the thousands running into windmills. What's that about birds running into
There is a graph, and the number of birds that are killed by windmills is so dramatically less than what's happening with the glass in our homes. A lot of that has been misused by politicians, that data. I'm not going to name politicians. You can name them yourselves, but anything humans do, we have an impact on the environment. And a lot of our impact is bad. So I don't care what kind of energy. I always kind of shudder when we talk about clean energy. Everything has an ecological trade-off. So no matter what we do, there's going to be issues with but some things have less of an environmental impact than others. And wind energy, especially because of climate change, is depending where it's sited. We're really concerned as the Pennsylvania Audubon Council where these types of utilities are sited. We're very concerned about them being on the ridges in Pennsylvania because of the migratory corridors. The Kittatinny Ridge is a global IBA. It's so important because of the raptor migration, cerulean warblers and other birds that breed there. So we don't want windmills on top of our ridges in Pennsylvania. There's a organization called Save Our Allegheny, bridges, something like that. So, a lot of Pennsylvania has the ridge and valley provinces. If you've ever driven across Pennsylvania, you go through a lot of tunnels, and they're through each of the ridges. So there are concerns about where this stuff is sited, where solar installations are sited. I like what they're doing in New Jersey. It looks like there's an awful lot of warehouses that have solars on the roof, and we're trying to pass a law in the Pennsylvania legislature to make sure warehouses are solar ready at least. We are so far behind, never mind, I'm not going to go into, but Pennsylvania is not as far along with renewable energy as some other places. Does that answer your question? Other question? Yes.
I saw an article,
where they have the windmills, and they have three blades, and they found in other countries, and I'm thinking Europe, but where if they would take these white blades and paint the middle and, or a middle and black, just that little thing, they aren't practicing.
I have
anymore.
seen that. I know we've tried, and I don't think it's going forward. There was a project called the Icebreaker Project in Western Lake Erie. You know, and the folks there, you know, if you've ever gone to McGee Marsh, you know, the folks out there were concerned about that kind of an installation. Western Lake area, there are a lot of mergansers that winter there, huge number. And so they were trying to work with the developer that the windmills would stop certain times of day or night, depending on things. And I don't think the project went forward. I think it stalled. But the idea of one of the blades on the windmill being a different color, there's been some research that, and I'm not that familiar with that research, but from what I have read, that has made a difference in the bird mortality. I don't know if it does anything for bats. I know bats are another concern. Yes.
One of your slides talked about the proximity of the bird feeders
Yes.
to the window, and so it went by a little fast. I was unclear on whether it was you wanted it as close to the window as possible.
Yeah, close to the window, a little bit better, and my interpretation is they don't get a running start to hit your plants.
Right. But what about, would it be similar for bird baths?
I don't know, but I would say the same thing. If you're attracting birds to your yard, this is for people that don't have their windows protected.
Right.
You know, it's better to protect the windows. Then it doesn't matter where you put the stuff. You know, the bird baths or, but I would think there's some similar data that way. Closer to the window, a less of a running start. And that's Leigh's unscientific explanation.
But it's backed up by the data in the case of bird feeders.
About the bird feeder, yeah. And that data's been interpreted differently, that some people, the study only went out, I think, to 30 feet. So some people think that, hey, if I put my feeders out 40 feet, it's fine. No, it's just where the study ended. The further away it is and the bird's flying around and hitting your glass, it's better to do something to protect your glass. And that doesn't matter really, frankly, where you put your feeders, because you have the glass protected. How many of you are motivated to do something at your windows at home? That is good. There's a place, if you do something again on the Bird Safe Philly website, I just saw a new post today. There is a small borough in suburban Philadelphia that they put Kaleidoscape on their municipal building. Not a very big building and not a very big borough, but they put Kaleidoscape on, so we have a site where people can post their retrofit, so we can, hey, people are doing stuff.
So do you want to tell people where they can get some of the feather friendly? Like it's on Amazon?
Yeah, there's a brochure here from Feather Friendly. We order it right from Feather Friendly. It comes in the mail. We have one woman with Bird Safe Philly, so that we're all not peppering with our projects. And we've done 8 projects so far. And with this grant, we're going to be doing a lot more. But we have one point of contact, that's Stephanie Egger, who's on our leadership team. But we order it directly from Feather Friendly, and it's shipped to us. We just ordered some today for a couple of projects. But the Feather Friendly brochures here, there are some Wild Birds Unlimited that sell it in a box like this. And inside, it's tedious to put up. You get a very special tool. It's a scraper. You get a measuring thing, so you can do it every 2 inches on your windows. You can put this on your windows, and then you measure each side. And then this stuff, this is the black one. So this is not one you would probably do on your windows, but you would do it if you had the clear glass both sides, like I said, the art museum, or that one we saw with the raptors on the images. You would put black dots on, so they show through both sides. but it goes on, it's sticky, so you go across your whole window, whatever the width of your window is, it sticks on, you try to make it level, that's why you use the measuring thing. You then use this tool, and you could rub it. I ought to just do it at the church window. They'll think the devil was here with black dots. But you just do it this way, and then you pull the adhesive off that's holding it, and the dots stay. And those dots will stay for years. This glass surfaces thing, that's my back patio door. I did it with the white dots with this product. And I stopped using the measuring thing. If you ever studied psychology in college, you heard about Gestalt, things just kind of come together. So, if you really look hard, you'll see places I don't have it quite 2 inches. But it worked, but I got it up a lot quicker. It's tedious, but it works. And again, I've not had the strikes. But you can take one of them. Audubon took a picture of my door and put it on that flyer. But you can get it at Wild Birds Unlimited. Some of them sell it. Some other places may sell it. You might find some other vendors that will sell these little kits. This does work for smaller windows. If I was going to be doing this church, if this was a project, you don't want to go this route. They do sell commercial or others where it's like 5 rows at a time of dots, and it goes a lot faster, and volunteers could do it. So if it's something you think you'd like to do as a club, raise some money. We do raise money originally with our birdathons, and we were able to raise the funds for the product, and then just get a lot of volunteers to come at the site and slap the stuff on. And with some people supervised. It's easy to do. We've even had 3rd graders do it. So if a 3rd grader can do it, yeah, you all can do it as well. I can show you pictures, but I know it's getting later, but I can show you a bunch of our retrofits.
So with the tape, is it just the dots that stick, or?
Just the dot stick, not the whole thing. So I have it, and my bird feeders are out back, and it doesn't bother us in the least. And my wife is, if she was bothered, she'd let me know. Any other questions? I'll have to come back another time when you have food, and we can give you an update next year, and we can show you some of the retrofit projects. But if you're interested in helping, like at Heinz Refuge, we're doing an orientation. It'll be on we're putting a calendar together on our website now that we have the grant. And if you think you'd like to learn how to do this, we're going to do an orientation. I think it's March 26th or 28th. Don't write down the date. It'll be on a calendar that we're putting up. And then I think it's April, after Easter, that we'll be actually looking for all the volunteers we can. It's going to be our biggest project to date. Are we good?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your attention. I know it's not an uplifting topic, but it's really an important one, especially when we're talking to nature clubs and bird clubs and garden clubs. Got to do it.